thank you everyone for those who turned up, and I'm sure people will start logging in over the next sort of 3 to 5 minutes. Yeah, and just letting everyone know, we are recording this session, so and please make sure you are muted, so that obviously we don't have any feedback and things like that. But welcome to the last SydBUG meeting 2020. It's been a very interesting year, shall we say. Probably one we will rather forget for various reasons, but also I suppose, in amongst all the really bad stuff that has happened around the world in different parts, there has been some big changes in how we work and the applications that we use, and Bluebeam, I think, has played a pretty big part in that, and certainly all the other associated applications. And I'm really keen and excited to hear some of the tools that Deepak and Nick and also Chris talk about today, because they certainly are the future of how we work and what we do. Kicking off, I'd certainly like to acknowledge the traditional owners, certainly for those who are in Australia, traditional owners on the land which we're participating and hosting in the meeting, or where you may be dialing in remotely, and their elders, past, present, and future. Just to go through some sort of housekeeping to start with, and also just to give a bit of background of the SydBUG. We've set up, we're obviously a diverse group of people from construction and architecture, engineering, and we're here to sort of try and facilitate and hopefully provide people with a good way of and also provide a really good platform for the discussion of digital engineering and also, I suppose, of Bluebeam and PDFs and a whole host of different things. So yeah, I think that's something that a lot of people are keen, and I'm certainly keen to promote in the next couple of years. Is we also explore that other part of the industry outside of just a pure Bluebeam PDF, and that's certainly why we've got Chris in to talk to us today, and go through that sort of LOD 500 delivery, and sort of digital engineering in the future. I think certainly it's going to be really great presentation. So the Champs Committee, very diverse group. There's always been a few changes. I'm now at BG&E in Sydney, civil BIM lead here. We've got Ben in Canberra, Nick, who's presenting from Robert Bird Group today, and sort of talking about how they completed and finished the Crown Tower in Sydney. Pretty iconic, what will be a very iconic building on our waterfront down here. We've got Amin, who's one of a BMD specialist, and certainly he's been sharing some really fantastic stuff on LinkedIn. Some of the stuff he's been doing, it's been really cool. Shruti from Lease and David, who's sort of from Arcadis and the electrical space, and they bring a sort of a different perspective on how things and how Bluebeam is used in the industry. being virtual. Hosts are also the chance. There's not really we're not in a physical location at the moment, and so yeah. But to the presenters. So first up today, we've got Deepak from CAD Group. He's the National Technical Manager. He's going to do a fantastic presentation with Naviswol and how it interacts with the studio. And Deepak's is well known to the Bluebeam world and also the Autodesk world, and done some really fantastic presentations over the years at the AU and also at extreme events. We've got Nick, who's coming in. He's reprising a presentation that he did, or sort of a presentation and case that he contributed to with the B1M early this year, and about how Crown Towers was delivered remotely and certainly finished off, and they worked through the COVID crisis and lockdown early this year, which I think would be really fantastic.
What do you want to be reminded about?
Excuse me, my phone is talking to me for some reason. And we're finishing off with Chris, and he's a geospatial engineer, digital surveyor at Seymour White. I should update that, but hey, here we are. But he's going to be sort of giving us a look at digital engineering in the future. So without further ado, I think we'll crack straight into presentations, and hand the floor over, as it were, to Deepak to give his presentation about studio projects and sessions in Navisworks. So yeah, thank you. All yours, Deepak. Hopefully you're in.
Yeah, thanks, Russell. Let me know if you can see my screen now.
Yeah, all good. All just
fantastic. I just want to first start with saying a big thank you to Russell and the committee of the Sydney user group, obviously, for giving me the opportunity to come and do a little talk at this event. I know it's the last event of the year, so a lot of you guys are happy that the year is almost over, but I'm just thinking it was March a couple of weeks back. What happened to the entire year? It just vanished in a blink of an eye. But it's good, it's good. All right, so Navisworks and Bluebeam Studio. Why are we using Bluebeam Studio? What's the correlation between the two? That's what I'm going to talk about in this presentation. So most of us already know what Bluebeam Studio is. So Bluebeam Studio is basically a Bluebeam Studio is a cloud-based collaboration environment that comes with all the versions of Review. So this is a question that I get asked quite often. Which version of Bluebeam Review has Studio? Pretty much all versions of Bluebeam Review actually come with Studio sessions and projects. Bluebeam Studio basically comprises of two main components. The first one is Studio Project, and the second one is Studio Sessions. Now, Studio Project is a lightweight document management system, but the key feature of this this part of Studio is that it lets you upload files of any format. A lot of people don't really understand this, but Studio Project doesn't only just let you upload PDF files, you can upload files of any format because it's a lightweight document management system. It comes with a check-in, check-out functionality. And if you're working with PDF files, you check them out and you check them back in, it saves the version history. If you've uploaded non-PDF files like your Navisworks files or your Revit files or your DWG files, and you check them out and you open them, it will open those files in the native program installed on your machine. When you make changes and you check the files back in, it actually saves the version history again. So irrespective of whether they are PDF files or non-PDF files, it actually keeps the version history. Studio sessions are basically our collaborative environment where we could have PDF files uploaded and we can invite multiple stakeholders to mark up those files at the same time. So how do these two components of Bluebeam Studio actually help us with clash management? So just a quick raise of hand if we can do in this program. How many of you actually have used Navisworks? Now, I take it that quite a few of you guys have used Navisworks. So Navisworks is a fantastic program. It's a really good program when it comes to clash detection. I'm not sure if you guys can see my screen. I think you should be able to. So Navisworks is really great when it comes to clash detection. However, Navisworks is not that good when it comes to clash management. Now, what I mean by clash management is, let's say we are working on a project. I run the clashes between structure mechanical, structure electrical, structure plumbing, and I send these Navisworks files to these individual consultants or contractors for them to review and resolve clashes. Now, let's say in one of the cases, I've asked some, maybe added some comments, or I've asked the mechanical consultant to move the ducts down by 250. For some reason, they can't do that. So they have to communicate that with me. The normal way is either send me an email or add comments in that Navisworks NWD file and then send the file back to me. And what happens over the period of time in a project is that communication is lost. So what communication happened, what happened in what file, it's pretty much lost. So that's where Navisworks struggles with. It is not a good clash management program. Now there are, as I mentioned, communication is lost along the way. There are some other programs that actually help Navisworks in clash management. So programs like BIM 360, Revisto, BIM Track, and so on, which are like add-ins that would sit on top of Navisworks and would let you work on this cloud-based file where you can add your comments and reviews and issues. The problem is there are additional costs to a project. So not all projects have got BIM 360 or Revisto or BIM Track enabled. So what do we do in that case? That's where Bluebeam Studio actually allows you to manage your NWD files along with the clash reviews and markups. And that's exactly what I want to show you in this live demonstration. So let me jump straight into my Bluebeam window. So currently I'm in this Bluebeam Studio environment. What I've got here is a project that I've created called Medical Laboratory Collaboration. And what happens is every time I issue a Navisworks clash detection package, I create a folder with that date. I do not keep all the folders there. Once I only keep up to 3 folders. So rest of them are moved into obsolete or in a different directory. So as you could see, I've got 2311 folder, I've got 2711 folder. If I go into my 2711 folder, I've got the Navisworks NWD file, and I've got the 3 PDF files of the clash test that I ran. So structure electrical, structure mechanical, and structure plumbing. Also, if I just quickly show you the project settings, what I've done is for folder permission, I've actually given read permission only to these folders. That's because I don't want people to upload the revised version of these Navisworks files or anything. I just want them to open these as read-only files. So the process from here is once I've run the clashes, I have generated the clash test reports as PDF files, and I've uploaded them here. And I also got the NWD file. So let's say I'm the mechanical consultant, or I'm the electrical consultant, or I'm plumbing. All I need to do is right click on this file here. I don't even need to check out. I can simply go and say open. Now, mind you, it's a Navisworks NWD file. So when I go and say open, it actually opens it as a read-only file in my native Navisworks program on my machine. The key is Navisworks needs to be installed on my machine. So what it does is it actually downloads a read-only version of this NWD file, and it opens this in Navisworks program, which is installed on my machine. And what I do from here on is I look at all the clash results that have been added to this file. So I'm going to go OK here. And if I go into my workspace that I've created, let me move this folder out of the way. I'm going to go into the workspace that I've created for my clash detection. All right, so I've got all these different clash results. If I go into, for example, structure versus mechanical, if I look at my results window, I've also grouped all these clashes, so I can see all these clashes grouped as well. Similarly, if I click on structure versus plumbing, so I'm looking at all these clash groups. So this one here is telling me that there are these 3 clashes and other clashes and so on. So as I'm working on these clashes, if I need to have a communication about any of these clashes here, what we would do in that case is from Bluebeam Studio projects, we'll pick up this PDF file and we'll go and add them into a new session. As you could see, I've already got a session running for structure versus mechanical. I'm going to add this to a new session, and I'm going to call this as structure versus plumbing. So what it's doing is it's now taking this clash report that was added into the project as a PDF file. It's taking it into a new studio session. And in this new studio session, I can then invite people. So I'm going to go and say, let's go and type an email address. So I've invited this person to start working with me on this PDF file. So I'm looking at these PDF files, and as you could see, these PDF files have got the same clash groups as well as the individual clashes as I've got in my clash results here. So if I'm looking at this first particular clash, so I can see the first clash is between this pipe and the slab. And I want to say that these are valid penetrations, and we have decided not to model the penetrations in this project. So I could simply go into this PDF file here, and I can start adding those markups. I'm going to go into my markups window here, and I'll go and pick, let's say, my markup tool. In this case, I want to use, let's use, because this is plumbing, so I'll go and pick the plumbing markup. And I can now go and add a markup here to this, and then I can add a comment here. This is valid penetration. We aren't modeling in this project. So this is a markup added. Similarly, if I'm working on, I can resolve the other clash. So this one is again a valid penetration. So I could do the same thing with this clash. This clash obviously is a problem because this is with a piece of steel. So I can go into my model. I can move this this pipe here, and I could then go into this particular markup here, and I could go and say this one here. Pipe moved, changes will be reflected in the new model. So the whole idea is I've got this one single source of truth where I've got all the information that I'm adding or any communication that I need to have with the BIM manager or the VDC manager about any of these. Similarly, if I've got any other problems, I can start adding comments here. But most importantly, this combination of studio sessions and studio projects is ensuring that I've got a single source of truth for my Naviswol NWD files, because this is a read-only file, I can't make any changes to it. And at the same time, I've got a single source of truth about my communication as well. Similarly, if I go into, let me close out of this, if I go into the other session that I've got running, I'm gonna go and leave this session. I can go into the structure versus mechanical session. And again, I can open this structure versus mechanical PDF file, and I can look into the structure versus mechanical clash results, and I can start working on this in the exact same way as I've been working on the structure versus plumbing test. So again, the whole idea is I've got everything that I need in one single location in my studio project. And any communication that needs to happen can happen through studio sessions. So that gives me, as I said, a single source of truth where I could have everything sitting in one single location about communication, about the project, or even the source files. And the best part is when you're creating these sessions, you could decide to, let me just go back to the structure versus plumbing session. So I could go into my iPad. So let's say I've added another user here who can start marking up, and I'm going to use my iPad for that. Let's do this. I'm going to go and add a join a new session. So this session ID is 099503842. Join. Now, the reason I had to punch in the code is because I did not have email configured on the iPad. So you can see here that this user now has got this file opened, and I can have this user start adding some markups and comments as well. So let's go to this one here. I'm going to go and add some comments here. So let's go and use a generic tool. I'm going to go and place this valid penetration again. So as you could see, even this user has now gone and added these comments. So the whole idea is it's a single source of truth when it comes to any communication about this particular clash results. I don't have to worry about adding comments in the NWD file and then sending the NWD file over to the BIM manager or the VDC manager, and then they're keeping a track of it and losing it along the way. And once we are done with this particular communication part of this clash test, everything is good. I can then go and finish this session, and I can generate a report. So if I go and say, let's go and finish this session here, and say finish session, I want to generate a report. So I'll go and say report settings. I want it to be a PDF package report with all this information. And I'm going to go and say, OK. So what it does is it then generates a report for me as well as a PDF package. And if I close out of this, I can go into this PDF package report and I can store this. So 6 months down the line, if somebody needs to discuss anything about, we talked about this particular clash, but it wasn't resolved, we can straight away go into this particular report. So I can go into this here and we can look at the report here, or I could just go and say open all the documents and look at this PDF file. And I can say, all right, so this is what was decided because it was a valid penetration. That's why it wasn't modeled. Hence, we decide not to resolve these clashes. So in the clash test, I can simply change the status of this to approved or reviewed. So again, the whole idea is we don't have to worry about sending the communications through emails or by adding comments in the NWD file. Everything is stored in this one single location for us to review at any point of time in the project. So something that, because most of the projects would have BIM managers or the VDC managers already have access to Bluebeam Review. And the best part of this entire process is that only the initiator of your review sessions or projects need a license of Bluebeam Review. Anybody who's added to the project or anybody who's added to the sessions do not need a license of Bluebeam Review, which means that everybody who's communicating with me on this particular project or this particular clash result does not need a license of Bluebeam Review, which means you can save project cost. You don't have to have those expensive products like Revit stores and BIM tracks and BIM 360s and so on. It is no additional overheads on the project, which makes everybody happy that there's no additional cost involved. But at the same time, it is doing a fantastic job of keeping everything at one single location as your single source of truth. So that's all I have in my presentation, pretty much exact on time, about 15 minutes for my presentation. I want to open this for questions, if you guys have any questions.
Deepak, yeah, I've just got a bit of a question about Studio. Is if you just have a normal Studio sessions with everyone can read and write, is there a way to set it up so I can edit, somebody else can edit my markups, like everyone can just edit everyone's markups?
That's a brilliant question. I'm glad that you asked that question. This is the best part of Studio session review process, that it maintains the integrity of the markups. Although I could be the owner of the session, but if I've added you into the session and you add the markups, I cannot modify your markups. I cannot delete your markups. I cannot do anything with your markups. So it maintains the integrity of the markups.
Yes, because we're using it more internally, and sometimes you want that ability because you don't want to have to say, can you change that markup or can you edit that? Because, you know, we're not so concerned about that because it's just internally within our team, and it'd be great if we could have a bit more freedom, but it doesn't sound like we can.
Yeah, but that actually is a good point. Maybe you could add that as a feature request to Bluebeam, where there could be a permission level, just like you've got permission for other things. You could have a permission level for allowing markup modifications and so on in your sessions.
So we have run into a similar issue at our firm, and the way we've gotten around it is kind of utilizing the reply feature and custom statuses to markups. So if someone disagrees with a markup or has a follow-up question about it, they use the reply, and then you can have a recorded chat essentially about that specific markup and then set a status to it to make a decision.
Correct, yes. That's the only way you could do it, by replying to those comments or the markups that have been added. But having said that, I don't think at this stage there's an ability to delete somebody else's markup. But again, as I said, it could be a feature request.
Awesome, thanks.
No worries. Any other questions?
I'm going to jump in with one more. You can't add, once your session set up with the session set up from the project, you can't like add layers or insert sheets or replace sheets.
A brilliant question. Okay, so again, I'm not sure whether you noticed it or not, but when I was adding my markups, I went into my tool chest and I used this tool here, which was plumbing. So what I've done is for my studio sessions, if you want to use layers for your sessions, the layers need to be created in the files beforehand, before you upload those files into studio sessions. And what you could do is you could create these custom tools where when you go and add any of these markups, they actually go into the layer that they are supposed to automatically. So that's what I've done with my studio session tools. I've got these markups created for structure, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and so on. So the whole idea is when I go and add a plumbing markup here using this tool, that markup automatically goes onto the plumbing layer, provided the layer is created in the PDF file before it was uploaded in the session.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
Do you have a process for automatically creating those layers in every file before you push it to a session?
I don't, but I know that there are some YouTube videos that actually talk about that. There's an automated process that somebody created to automatically push the layers in a PDF file before they are pushed into a studio session.
Okay, thanks.
All right, so if there are no more questions, I will hand it over back to Russell. And again, Russell, thanks for giving me the opportunity to do this presentation.
Well, thanks, Deepak. No, that was really good, very insightful. Gave me some great ideas to see what's possible. Okie dokie. So let me do my screen. Bear with me. Okie dokie. So here we are. So thanks, Deepak. That was awesome. That was a really great presentation. Thank you for doing it. It's, certainly showing how you can integrate some very key parts of our workflow that were otherwise sort of in silos. So thank you. Moving on to Nicholas. Nicholas works at the Robert Berg Group. He's an engineer there and has been heavily involved in Crown Towers, which is a very iconic structure on the Darling Harbour waterfront in Sydney. I'm not sure if any of you guys either live in Sydney or travel to Sydney, you certainly can't miss it. And what he's going to talk about today is certainly how this was delivered from home under lockdown in probably one of the most challenging periods that we've had to deal with in recent times. So without further ado, I'll hand the floor over to Nick.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks, Russell. I can share my screen.
Yes, certainly can.
All right. One second, it should start. Cool, is that sharing? Yep. So yeah, I was lucky enough to collaborate with the B1M and Bluebeam to sort of explore how we were able to deliver Crown from home when we went into lockdown, and our digital collaboration obviously played a big role in it. And it was really fun to sort of reflect and think about the way we were doing things beforehand and how things changed during lockdown. And I suppose what we all were able to do early in the project, or the way the project developed, which allowed us to sort of adapt quite quickly to working remotely. So yeah, it was heavily focused around that digital collaboration and remote working, which we're all sort of experiencing now. And I think everyone had to adapt to quite quickly. And when I was sort of preparing for this presentation, I went back and I was sort of reflecting, which I sort of enjoyed to do. You get to see, sort of think about where you've come from, how things have developed, and sort of where we are now and where we're going. And I was going back through a few old presentations, and it definitely didn't start out as a paperless project. We've got sort of these old photos of my boss at the time. He had piles of hand markups and coordinations and shop drawing reviews, and that just didn't hold up against the torrent of documentation that the Crown building was producing at the time, and probably still continues to produce. So obviously we had to move on with Bluebeam. And again, I was digging back around my old presentations and found this old Bluebeam timeline of, the revolution when it begun. When we started using this, got really excited to start playing around with this wonderful tool, which allowed us to really enhance the way we're able to do our jobs. And just going through all the little things that I suppose a lot of us might, even in this group, take for granted now, just the way, doing overlays and doing coordination and shop drawings and stamps, like all that stuff, like thinking back to 2017, it seemed so, it was so new. And now it's sort of, if you don't know how to do that, it's sort of a bit surprising sometimes. A lot of people are starting, a lot of young people across the industry they're probably never going to have to suffer through some of those old hand markups and sitting there stamping shop drawings for hours on end and scanning them back in and then uploading them, like all that seems to have gone. And yeah, I suppose when I was looking at this, the new functions, even, back then when I did this present, thinking about this mid 2019, that we're thinking about doing sessions and setting up the tool chests, and some of those things have come to fruition, and we're really, getting stuck into the sessions. Got plenty of questions about how we can adapt it and tweak it to sort of fit our workflow, the way we're doing things. So yeah, when COVID happened, it was really a culmination of all this, and the whole design team, I think, everyone, it was sort of, you had to adapt or die in the coordination room, because everyone started doing this. And the thing that really we benefit as structural engineers from is the ability to communicate effectively and clear through sketching, and just how accurate you could make these markups, which allowed you to turn things, you didn't have to, you're able to communicate your ideas so quickly and efficiently to site. It really allowed the construction before COVID to continue at a rapid pace. And then during COVID, they expected the same level of service, even though they were still working on site, but everyone else was working from home, but they still expected that same level of service. And definitely with Bluebeam, it was that tool that enabled us to keep working at that high pace, which was required, especially, COVID happened, they wanted things quicker, they wanted things done fast. There was the big worry about what was going to happen, and we really did have to up the ante around the design team, between the architects, the client, and all the consultants, and just digitizing. We had, like, got site inspection records there, but turning everything electronically. Back when you were in the office, you could get away with having that paper markup. You could get by. It wasn't like a must-have. You've got to have everything digitized, and but it really benefited, again, the project, and definitely the project teams that had already evolved to use this tool. It allowed them to succeed or transition quickly to remote working, and the benefits of that definitely shone through. And I still get lots of questions about people asking me. Got some examples later on about the certain questions I still get, which surprised me. So yeah, this is a bit of a busy slide, and just to sort of show you, the quantity of people we're sort of coordinating with, everyone, all the services team, you crown the client, interior designers, architects, you got the consultants that have to review the services drawings. And back when we would do this, now we've got sessions and everything's really set up, is really well formulated. And I'm currently working up on Crossriver Rail in Brisbane, and the sessions and the reviews and how everyone does that is quite a defined process. Back when we were doing this, it was, whoever got green and put their green on, that was the mechanical, and then everyone knew that your RBG was the blue comment. And I suppose I sort of want to bring this up is that, like, it worked, it did what it needed to do, and now we've evolved, and now we've got all these extra tools and everything. But at the time, or especially if you're sort of just starting out on this, you just need to find a process that works for you and your project. It doesn't have to have all the bells and whistles and everything. You've got to find a solution that works for you, and then you chip away at improving it and just slowly evolving it, especially when you're trying to get a whole team to buy into it. We had to chip away at certain people in the team to get them to invest their time, and we were investing our time into getting not only internally our design team, but also the wider design team, and making sure everybody was sort of going in the right direction or pushing in the right direction. And then, yeah, so obviously we had the disruption, and we're still able to complete, and it's soon to open for everyone to go and enjoy, hopefully. And I was thinking about definitely when we're doing the webinar with the B1M and Bluebeam, thinking about actually, you know, what was that like when just the disruption happened, and what changed. And there was definitely a few things where I thought, you know, revisiting, obviously the training, the online resources. I think we had a few more trainings just to make sure everybody was up to speed. I was up to speed with Bluebeam. I thought about, you know, we were revisiting and reviewing existing workflows. Like, did they work? And really, you know, communication is key. But I really found on an individual level, it was even more important. It was trying to talk to your whole team individually, because what I soon found is I've got a sort of an image of the designer and the approver and the drawing sign off. So, you know, they would do a presentation and it's supposed to be in their tool set. Nobody would be telling you whether or not, you know, their tool set's updated or they got the drawing sign off. It was only through communicating with them, you know, seeing how they were doing things, you know, having those team catch-ups while working remotely to really understand, you know, were they actually, you know, they had these presentations, they knew these tools were there, but were they actually able to use them? And then obviously pointing them in the right direction of IT, or, you know, putting them in the right direction to get those things solved. And that obviously allowed for consistency across, you know, across the offices, across the project. You know, you're getting people to help out, and you really want to make sure you're sending similar markups. You don't want to be confusing people, and that, you know, having those tool sets and having those standards really helps achieve that goal. And yeah, I just thought about a bit about, you know, continued agility. Now, when we're sort of preparing for the B1M and Bluebeam collaboration, you know, the COVID was still, you know, probably, what was it, a couple of months ago now, we're still coming out the back end, and now definitely in Sydney, everything's going back to a bit of normality, and we don't want to lose, you know, what we've sort of gained, I think, as an industry. I'll be about not a great experience, but how I've had to evolve. And I've already noticed, you know, even myself, you know, not to become complacent and return to old habits, and making sure people are still growing and wanting to use the tools that we've sort of got there. And, you know, I went back through a few old, you know, when COVID happened, if you can see those snapshots, he was like, you know, gents, do we have standard tags for Bluebeam? And in my head, I'm thinking we've been using it for years, but yeah, I think they're there. Yeah, we do. They've found them in the tool chest tab. You know, mind blown. You know, there's so many of these, or, you know, my Bluebeam has all these errors. I can't stamp it. Can you help me? To be honest, most of these people are the senior guys that don't go to the training session, so I'll give them a bit of a hall pass. But it's yeah, it's really about having that feeling of community and coming to these sessions and asking questions, trying to get it, you know, not trying to get it perfect, trying to get it right, but then be, you know, open to improvements, being flexible in sort of how you get to that end goal. And I suppose all those things really enabled the whole team to definitely internally at Robert Burr Group to continue to deliver these, you know, these landmark projects like Crown. And, you know, I don't think I'd be able to be working on a project. You know, we've got 12 people working out of the Brisbane, so in Sydney for a Brisbane project. We wouldn't be able to be doing that without Bluebeam, and definitely with Studio, and just our continued ability to deliver good work is the goal. So yeah, thanks. Just sort of rambled for a bit there, but yeah, it was great putting the presentation together and talking about Bluebeam. So yeah, thanks Russell for the opportunity. And if you haven't checked out the YouTube video, go have a look. Any questions?
Yeah. Thanks. Well, look, if you can't think of any questions now, please throw them in an email and send them to myself, and we can certainly get them on to Nick, or just reach out to Nick on LinkedIn or something like that. So Yeah, thank you, Nick. That's an amazing presentation. And just quickly sharing.
How do I stop sharing? Got it.
Oh, awesome. No worries. I'll try and find. Here we go. It's not that far in there. Right, thank you, Nick. That was really awesome. Okay, on to our last segment for the evening. Chris Power from CMY actually is his correct employer rather than something I had listed before. Chris is a digital survey engineer based in Brisbane, and he's done some fantastic work recently in creating LOD 500 models, which I may or may not have seen on LinkedIn. A really good impression and picture of what the future looks like, and certainly where we're all hoping to head to some degree, or not going forward, and certainly, yeah, the future. So, without further ado, I'll hand over to Chris.
Thanks, Russell. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yep.
Yep, that's great. Well, I'll share my screen then, if I can find which one it is.
Cool, I can see you now. Yep, all good.
That's probably me. Yeah, I've had a bit of a different sort of journey to BIM, really. Like I started with BIM probably in 2018, and I had a discussion with a man that was from the Transport and Main Roads in Queensland, who was charged with implementing BIM because the government said, okay, all the major projects have to have BIM by 2023. So he was the man to do it. So he came to me and asked me if I'd be interested in being involved in a pilot project for linear infrastructure. So this is the M2VL, that's Madrabar to Varsity Lakes. So we sort of got involved in that, and it was really my first sort of dip into BIM altogether. And I quickly became, well, aware that I'd sort of jumped in about halfway through the process, really, because there was a whole design end that had already occurred. And the other part of that was obvious was that there wasn't a lot of people actually thinking about what happens after the design process. So once you get into the construction phase, particularly with linear infrastructure, there wasn't a lot of chatter about how that was going to be implemented. There was talk of 4D, 5D, and lots of theories, but not a lot of examples. So we sort of had to hit the ground running. So what we did at the first place, we sort of went back to TMR and just more or less started at the beginning. I mean, began at the end, rather, in so much as that we identify what they wanted as a deliverable, and we just sort of put our energy into delivering that rather than integrating it into all of the pieces of the puzzle, like through the estimating process and through the quality assurance process. So, but the inevitability was that we did need to link into a lot of that anyway. So it's I'll go through this older presentation that I did quite a while ago, and then I'll just sort of show the updated one. Oh, not that one. So, let's go to full screen. I don't think we need to sort of really get bogged down in the beginning, other than to say it was Seymour White and Vinci that sort of drove it in the beginning. We got a lot of help from Vinci out of Paris. They provided us with all of the answers that we needed because they're doing them over there as well. And I was surprised to find out that England, France, and the US are really at about the same stage as we are in linear infrastructure. So nobody's really ahead of anybody else at this stage. I put this slide in because I wanted to highlight the fact that, particularly since there's probably a lot of designers around, with linear infrastructure, we have to sort of take notice of the old survey problem of the curvature of the Earth. So in this context, we sort of use a lot of GPS-based tools and like machine control and that sort of thing to do bulk earthworks. And most of the designs actually provided in UTM-based projections. So there's scale factors and things that have to be taken into account. Whereas most of what I've seen in the BIM space is the old 3D Cartesian plane. So there's an option for that. There is actually one that is a true 3D. And this is just a little bit of a plug. I don't expect Autodesk is going to jump into this beta anytime soon, but there is options for true 3D. Like there's the system ECEF, which is the one that keeps track of satellites and handles the GPS system, which is a true 3D sort of view. Like if you imagine if you zoomed far enough out from your work, you'd actually see the curvature of the Earth, and if you kept going in like Google Earth, you'd see the whole world. And so if you're in that scale, everything's 1-to-1, so it's a true distance. So anyway, that's the end of my plug. But these are the sorts of tools that we can use out on the site with using GPS, and once we've got those sort of scale factors sorted out. So this is showing a 3D model overlaid on reality in real time. So this little device is a GPS system that works with your phone. So you can load up, an IFC or something like that of a bridge and see, well, how well it matches or what it's going to look like before you build it, sort of thing. So this is something that's quite popular with supervisors and that sort of, level of, getting sort of towards the hard face of construction. So they're kind of really happy to use these tools, and the project managers obviously don't want to pay for it, but they're good to see them starting to emerge. So we use a lot of survey gear, obviously, and the one in the middle there, I just sort of highlight that because that's a laser scanner, and I'm aware that everybody's sort of laser scanning left, right, and centre, but we kind of centred in on this one because it has the same level of traceability for survey accuracy as a theodolite. So we can hang our hat on the measurements that come out of it. It's a 1-second instrument. We don't need any additional georeferencing because we can georeference straight into the survey network, control network. So it's the same. So you're marrying up into the same position, same system that you're using for machine control and general survey on site as well. So it's we were using this for a while, but we've kind of switched over to an RTK version of that. So the little white one, everybody probably knows the DJI Pro or whatever it's called. There's also a version with a little bump on it, which does RTK surveying, which gives us another level of accuracy. So we've actually moved into the RTK space at the moment. And we're kind of using Trimble Stratus, it used to be called Propeller, to handle all the processing. So really all our guys have got to do is upload their photos and the control to this site, and it gets processed overnight. We've got over 500 users on our account now, and nearly all of our jobs are using this in one way, shape, or form. So that we've also got the internet-based machine control, so it's not the old broadcast over a radio anymore. We can sort of target who we giving data to and who we're getting it back from. That's a key thing with EIBSS is it's two-way data. So while the machine's out there, they're collecting data, and we can transfer that back to the office. So say if, for instance, if there's a surveyor has missed something, maybe something's been uncovered and then recovered between the surveyor being there, then we can go back and find out what the true level was. That was the actual excavation. So we'll just jump into what we do with this thing, I suppose. So I guess for us, like the IFC, the advent of IFC gave us another way to sort of set things out in the field. So the field controllers can take IFC directly. So and like that's the whole bridge just sitting in the controller. So in there, what they do is they go in and identify what points they want to use for set out and create points for those. And then it's just exactly the same as a normal survey set out. So there's no learning curve for these guys. They're just basically 10 minutes and they're up and running with it. So this shows Trimble Business Centre. So this is part of that same bridge there that has had some scanning done. The vectors that you see are just the control vectors, so that's all the setups that they normally do anyway. So we zoom in there. Our first quest was to how to map these and make solids that we could compare to the design. So what we did was basically clean that up, which is always the first port of call with a scan data set. And after a few iterations and trials, we worked out how to actually get 3D face sets out of that based on survey data. So we can actually embed the raw survey into it. So currently what we're doing is we're doing surface to surface conformance, so that, you know, just to check that it's actually where it's meant to be. But we're working on a system where we'll do conformance just from the scan itself. So we should be able to just get like a cleaned up scan of, say, you know, an apartment or something like that, and the IFC design for it, and just tell the software to compare it and give us a heat map of the result. And that more or less should be an automated process. So I think, you know, it's for things like automated conformance, it's going to add a whole new level of intricacy and probably save us a lot of money. So I'll just keep moving through here as quickly because I'm a little bit conscious of the time there. This just basically shows how this bridge was built in the first stage. That's using all the survey data, and there's a little bit of the point cloud in the background. So this is probably just before they demolished the old bridge. So they built most of the new one around it and then demolished the last bit there and filled that up. But we'll have a look at that model also when we get in there. So this is also, I think that's a 300-metre long retaining wall to separate the motorway from the railway, sort of sitting in between two batters, so in the nice little V, of course. So the further down you go with that, the less room you've got. So that's the design that we had, and this is sort of one of the items that sort of made us suggest to the designers that they might want to try to be lot ready, so with the designs, because well, I'll just go through what we did with it first. So basically, what we needed to do is we put that into a survey system, which is a picture of it there, and then we could design the temporary works. So because we need to get a piling pad down here, we needed a certain width for it so that it could operate, but there wasn't actually enough room there. So we had to sort of overpour a lot of those piles and cut them back again. So you can see once you get down to the level that you're actually pouring the pile cap at. Sorry, my apologies. Pardon me. So when you get down to the level where you're pouring the pile cap, you've got much less room. So that's the space that there was for the pile rig, and that's the space that there was for the contractors to get in there. So that was these surfaces did end up going straight into the machines. So it's good to be able to sort of have that continuity from the BIM platform straight into the machine. So that's what we're sort of aiming at. So this one just shows probably the progression of part of this wall. So that's the pile caps and then the piles and the pile cap, and then the blade walls after that. So that was sort of the basis of a model that was used to compare to the design model. But what we found was that we wanted to marry it up with the QA system. So we really needed it to be in the same sort of format that that it was actually built in. So rather than having all of that piece in, like basically it's a survey accurate 3D GIS, because it's all of the attributes that are required by the client, all just sitting in spreadsheets behind that. Whereas the design actually came up like that. So that one piece was the 300 meters, and it was like over 100 lots. So it wasn't really lot ready, and there wasn't at the time and a simple way to cut it up. And we did use it to compare with the with what was built, but yeah, it wasn't sort of able to really form the basis of what we provided the client. So that's what I mean about sort of becoming lot ready. Now, I know a lot of you are working in vertical infrastructure, and this is more of a linear sort of thing, but anyway, it's a bit of an exposure to linear for you. So this is the whole project. It's cut into 3 zones. One of the other things we sort of came across was up in zone 1 here, and we had 2 bridges running across a floodplain. So there was a main creek bridge and also an overflow bridge. So in that overflow bridge, there's an example here. This is SX10 data, so that's terrestrial scanning of the driven piles. So you can see these sort of light blue, purpley ones. That's the design piles. So we found that if we took one of those, we could fit a vector to what was remaining outside. So because they're a known shape, size and shape, we could accurately sort of detail where the toe of those things actually ended up, instead of sort of like, that's something that the administrator or the contractor had never seen before, and now it's on evidence. So whether they blame me or not, I don't know. We did get it started. So it's because it's like a known geometrical shape, and we can fit that in and produce a vector to show us where the toe is. And I know you're probably going to say that doesn't comply, but there was actually an existing pile that ran down through there on an angle from the old bridge. So that was allowed in the end. Likewise with the substructure, sort of we just kind of went through and worked out ways to produce the 3D face sets straight out of the scans, and then match them to the design. You can see the slight rippling effect in the surfaces there. That sort of indicates that there's scan data is actually embedded in that surface, and creating the nodes or vertices of the mesh. So it's as true a representation as you can probably get at the moment, I'd say. We also used it to monitor surcharge. So, that when you get into mushy ground, you sort of pile it up with a whole lot of dirt to make sure it sort of stays where you want it to stay. And that happened over a few months. So we just used the UAV pass actually to create different surfaces, and we made the 3D face set objects out of that, and they stored the information within that set. So it's not a bad way to sort of keep track of things, and also used it for drainage. So I often show that one because people think it's a photograph, but it's not. It's a scan. You kind of see maybe this guy sneezed or something. I'm not sure. It was used to sort of check the geometry was correct with these. This is a culvert, obviously. So this is what the design came in 2D. And that was what was given to us by the designers. So that was transferred into using the standard drawings to create a set out for that. And then once it was built, that was scanned, and the scan became the new solid. And then that's it sitting in the model at October last year, basically. So it's moved along a fair bit from where that is now. So you can see that was still when that piece hadn't been put into the puzzle. So basically, if you use this sort of the approach of using the UAV data, it does provide great context, and really makes these models really easy to read. So go into that's just to show that we had all the pavement layers in there as well. So we got to about that sort of, and since then we've come along a little bit further. So that's that same area that's actually finished now. So I'll just run through a couple of these so you get a bit of a feel for it. So it was sort of a bit darker. That was the final one. And it was kind of about 6 o'clock in the afternoon when we flew that one. But as we go from north to south, you can see the daylight's coming back into it. So it's sort of like, basically, the goal was to get it to reflect the QA system, the QA database. So everything that's here is, it's got all of its information, so we know what data was actually installed and all the rest of the data. There's, schedule data, which is design. So I think the idea is that you have design and you have construction attributes, and then you have your linking attributes and all of this as well. So it's sort of really the trick is to get it all singing together, which is something that's sort of a bit of a work in progress, because I think I might have mentioned that it was I kind of started at the end. So now I've kind of gone back to the beginning and of getting it working with the estimators, and the next step after that will be to get it, like on site, back on site with, the communication. So like Bluebeam's got the roles set up, so you can sort of, check data out and check data in and move it around and get all the authorizations. We'll probably do the NCR system that way as well. And so, yeah, at the moment, it's really just kind of a bit of a check on design at the moment. So we've sort of gotten to the point where the client's, well, he's more than happy with the output. I think we've given a puzzle for the survey department, because they're now trying to work out how on earth they're going to specify it. And I'm just missing a piece of the puzzle there. But being 5:02, it's probably about the time to open up to questions. Hopefully I've got some, because I'm sure I haven't covered everything, but there's still a lot going on in this space. Like this is completely finished. This is piecemeal, but that's because that's live electricity, and really the only data we could get back from that was survey data. So they just do test pits. So that's all you really can have confidence in. So there's probably quite a bit of electricity through there, but it's the same old problem that the dial before you dig data is terrible, and nobody's going to take responsibility for it. So I think that's one of the things that really needs to get sorted out. But yeah, I think modelling itself is I think anyone can do that now. It's gotten to the point where most of the kids with the games, they start out when they're 5 or 6, modelling in some way or other. So I think most of the people that are coming up into the industry now kind of expect that all of this is already happening, and they're quite surprised when they find that it isn't. But anyway, questions? Is anybody here?
Yeah, no, we're certainly, that's really awesome, Chris. It's great to see, certainly. So, obviously, did you hand this over to TMR? That's that particular model there?
Yeah, this is the published model that they've got. That's why I can show it. So, yeah, we've got quite a number of other ones, but they're all still sort of under wraps. You know what people are like in construction. They don't like giving too much away. But yeah, it's sort of getting there. So, yeah, so I think there's a few coming up down south there. There's the Warringah Freeway and the Gateway, obviously. And I think there's a lot of talk going on about sort of virtual reality in that space at the moment. So I think there's a bit of pressure on to get sort of that sort of stuff under control. But I think that's just basically render farms, isn't it, Russell?
Yeah, so I mean, there are some really big projects, and obviously Transport for New South Wales are pushing a big digital engineering framework. So that's going to obviously inform, I would hope, a lot of this, and their projects that are the scope that can take this sort of development as well.
Yeah,
they're not tiny projects. They're of a similar magnitude to what you're showing on screen here. So yeah.
I think it'll take a bit of time to get the specs right for it. But yeah, at the moment, we're still at the stage where there's a lot of cultural resistance, and you know, so people are trying to get out of whatever they can at the moment. So we just have to keep up the pressure, I think.
Indeed. Okay. Well, if we haven't got any questions, look, please again reach out to Chris on LinkedIn if you do think of a question. But I'd certainly like to extend thanks for showing this, and really showing what's possible, and a reflection of the future, I suppose, of where we're heading.
Yeah, I think the takeaway I'd like to give is that like digital engineering is a process, and design is a part of that process, but it's not the whole process. There's the whole life of digital engineering into the construction phase, and I think the only true way to get to a real digital twin is to get the site involved.
Yeah,
because they're collecting all the data. It's there, and they get all the changes, the last minute red line markups, all of those little quirks and adjustments. I think that's what we need to be capturing with that.
Cool.
All right.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. I'll share back into the thing. But yeah, look, as I said, please reach out to Terry, to everybody, sorry, to Chris and Nicholas and Deepak. It'd be great to sort of make sure the conversation continues. Just got a few closing announcements. As always, look, please make sure you reach out to the LinkedIn group. There's some great conversation in there. Also, this presentation is being recorded, so we will hopefully have it up in the next sort of 8 to 10 days once it's been tidied up. And check that out on the Bug YouTube channel. And also please follow the communities, the Bluebeam communities there. Hopefully our next meeting, fingers crossed, will be same time, potentially on the 2nd of March. We'll see how that goes, and we'll see how the presentation segments come together, whether that changes, but it's pretty much there. But look, anyone who's listening in, or know people someone who has a good story, please let us know. We'd love to hear that story, whether it's with Bluebeam or digital engineering as well. For those who, please make sure if you're in Melbourne or want to join in, they've got a virtual session as well. It's a midday session, and their next meeting's on the 8th of December next week. They've got some fantastic presenters, and I think they've got a giveaway as well, if I'm not mistaken. So please join in. Also plugging Building Smart, certainly for the Australasia chapter, and if you've got a chapter in your own areas, please check out that LinkedIn group, and also check out your Building Smart advanced calendars wherever you are. Some really great events and some really good organisation to get involved with. These are probably more Sydney-centric than anything else, but Revit User Group is one of our key collaborator supporter groups. Make sure you check out their events. They're also virtual Hopefully we'll get back to the days when we can have pizza again, but at the moment we're all hiding away in little rooms and meeting rooms and things like that. So yeah. And last but not least, Dynamo. Please also, if you're in Sydney, check out those guys. They're online as well, and they have some fantastic resources and meetings where they share some really cool stuff. But look, that's it for tonight. Thank you to everyone for joining. So, sort of closing comments, questions, or anything that people might have dreamed up for the presenters tonight. No, all good. Look, well, thank you again. Probably sign off for the evening and let everyone go and get back to everyone go home or head downstairs to
has left the meeting.
Oh, someone's left. But yeah, look, thank you very much for coming and thank you for attending. And we'll look forward to seeing you. And thank you also to the presenters. Thank you, Deepak, Nicholas, and Chris. They were really fantastic presentations, and really appreciate you taking the time to turn up tonight and to dial in. So yeah, thank you.